Today we are going to get advice from Spirit for you at the time you find this video. And we're going to get the main message with this Divine Feminine Oracle, this red deck, with a clarifier or two. I'm feeling two from this Soul Tree deck. And I'm just going to pull from how they're set up right now, which is not what I typically do. So I'm just going to take a breath. I'm feeling called to pull with my left hand. Don't exactly know why. And we'll see what comes out, okay? So let's take a breath here. It's this one. Wow, it just popped. That's wild. This is the Princess of Mercy. Giving is receiving. The energy of the universe is merciful. Wow, with that beautiful white tiger. Okay. That white tiger is actually making me think of Kelly Kaladny, I believe is how you say her name. She is a channel of the Archangel Raphael. But now that I'm saying that, so she has this incredible video of her, I think it's actually a white lion now that I say that, but it still came to mind. She is very connected to the symbolism of a white lion, and she went to a zoo that had a white lion, and there's just this incredible video of that interaction. But I do think it's a lion, not a tiger. So my apologies for that. But you may want to look up her work, and maybe I'll link her YouTube page up in the description because she shares a lot of incredible information. So now let's pull two soul tree cards, shall we? Balance. The fourth chakra, heart center. Wow. Wow, what a beautiful reading, isn't it? So let me take a breath on these cards and then we'll move forward. Okay, so first things first, I feel like these want to go this way. I'm not exactly sure why. But we're going to begin by reading about the Princess of Mercy. And look at how beautiful this card is. You'll see there's butterflies in the background here, tiger. So you might want to look up some of this animal symbolism because it's really coming to me strongly. I'm not feeling called to actually look it up for you, which is not common. But I'm wondering if that's because you're intended to find the particular description that is meant for you. So with that being said, butterfly symbolism, white tiger symbolism, and white lion symbolism might be applicable to your situation and the advice that you're looking for. So let's read about the Princess of Mercy. So I'm mostly going to say the Princess of Mercy instead of her actual name because I fear that I would really mispronounce it. I think it's, if I need to say it while reading, I think it's Miao Shan. My apologies though if I'm mispronouncing that. So let's read about her, shall we? She is, as I said, the Princess of Mercy. Giving is receiving. The energy of the universe is merciful. Who she is. The Princess of Mercy represents the incarnation and fulfillment of mercy. She was a Chinese princess who is believed to have lived during the Tang dynasty and to have been the incarnation of the goddess of Kuan Yin. She was the daughter of the king who wanted her to marry a wealthy man in order to secure more wealth and power for himself. When she refused, the king sent her to live in a monastery on a secluded island off the coast of China. When the king found out that the Princess of Mercy had transformed the barren island into a paradise, he got so angry that he ordered the monastery to be burned to the ground. But when the Princess of Mercy saw the monastery in flames, she pricked the tip of her tongue with a hairpin and magically summoned a storm that put out the fire. The king then ordered the Princess of Mercy to be executed, but no blade or sword could kill her. Instead, each weapon shattered into pieces before touching her body. After several attempts, a gorgeous glowing white tiger appeared and spirited the Princess of Mercy away. The tiger took her to meet Yama, the ruler of hell. The Princess of Mercy immediately heard the suffering of the souls all around her, and one by one she liberated them with the fierce power of her empathy. Wow, I just got goosebumps. Yama had to send the Princess of Mercy away because she was transforming hell into heaven. He gave her the peach of longevity as a gift. The Princess of Mercy meditated for many years on the island of Putu Shan. News reached her that the king was on the verge of death, and he needed the eyes and arms of a person without anger in order to live. The Princess of Mercy gave him her eyes and arms. The king was revived and came to honor the person who had saved his life. When he saw that his savior was the Princess of Mercy, he fell to his knees, humbled by the extent of her mercy. Wow. So as I'm reading that, I'm realizing that I know she has shown up in readings before, maybe just one, but there might be two. So what I will do is look back on past readings, and I will, any ones that she has shown up, I will link those readings up in the description box of this video in case there's more information about this sort of energy, this archetype that might be helpful for you in terms of, again, the advice you're looking for at the time you find this video. So let's read about what this card can mean to you. It says, when your soul selects her card. The author Sue Monk Kidd articulates the process of empathy so clearly when she writes, empathy is the most mysterious transaction that the human soul can have, and it is accessible to all of us. But we have to give ourselves the opportunity to identify, to plunge ourselves in the story where we see the world from the bottom up or through another's eyes or heart. Empathy is mercy's twin sister. When we can feel the reality of someone else's suffering, we open up to the possibility of mercy. Mercy comes from the old, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It looks like an old text, which means, or maybe an old language, I'm not sure. Merc. Okay, so mercy comes from this old language or text, merc, which means exchange. Mercy is the embodiment of compassion. It can feel easy or even natural to have compassion for people who have never harmed us personally. But mercy is having compassion for someone who has. Mercy requires that we give something of ourselves, which is symbolized by the Princess of Mercy giving her eyes and arms to the king. It can feel like a great sacrifice to be so giving towards someone who has given us nothing but suffering. Here's where magic comes in. The law of the universe is merciful. The more we give, the more we receive. The more we give, oh, excuse me, I just read that. Maybe I'm supposed to read it twice. The more we give, the more we receive. When the king realized the profound act of mercy his daughter bestowed on him, the Princess of Mercy transformed into a true manifestation as the thousand-armed Kuan Yin. The Princess of Mercy is a reminder that giving is the true receiving. When we refuse to release our anger towards someone, we're blocking the flow of the universe within us. We are not harming the person who harmed us by remaining angry. We are keeping ourselves from receiving the love and light that is already ours. Soul Voice Meditation. Who can I give mercy to in this moment? Intention. Giving is receiving. The energy of the universe is merciful. Okay. So I'm getting some really interesting messages with this card. And so it's interesting because just yesterday I was having a conversation with someone about forgiveness. And I was talking about how I am coming to terms with the fact that forgiveness, and this is not me just having these insights, this is by becoming more trauma aware, trauma informed, following trauma aware, trauma informed people and therapists. They're helping me understand that starting with forgiveness doesn't work. Okay. So I think it's a guy named Patrick Tian. I follow him on Instagram and both Instagram and YouTube, and I can I'll link up his YouTube channel in the description box of this video because he's got some really powerful things to share. But he has a post on Instagram that has always stuck with me. I think I saw it months or even years ago. And it is that forgiveness is at the caboose of the healing train. It is not the engine. And so I think there's something here where so giving is receiving, but I also think we can get into this vicious cycle. Oh my God, and I speak from experience, where we're trying to give others what we haven't given ourselves yet. Okay. And so I think there is a call here to first see yourself in mercy, or to practice giving this mercy, this forgiveness to yourself. Okay. And when we can do that more and more, and to be fair, this is much easier said than done. Like forgive yourself. It sounds great, but like, how do we actually do it? Right. Well, I think a powerful place to begin is to learn about a therapeutic philosophy known as internal family systems, because, and so internal family systems, there's a great book called No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz. I will put that in the description box. I also have another channel where I post like holistic health stuff, including yoga and Pilates, but also some emotional health stuff. And I have a video on that channel that's an introduction to IFS, internal family systems. I'll link that up in the description box of this video. But I love that premise because, as you can tell by the title of Richard's book, No Bad Parts, there is an assumption of mercy. There's an assumption of innocence in terms of we've all done things that we're not proud of and we need to essentially make amends, reckon with is what I'm trying to say. We need to reckon with and potentially make amends if we want to live a healthier life. However, the reason that we typically do those things is not our fault. It's because of how we were treated in the past, and then different ideas about ourselves and our persona, or different ideas about ourselves and how that affects our persona, are a result of how we were treated, right? And so there's this holding of innocence plus responsibility that I love, that I'm realizing that is really embodied in that in that idea of psychology and healing. But then I also am just realizing that anything that embodies that paradox of innocence plus accountability. Do you know what I mean? I think there's like one way that I think of it is like nothing is our fault and everything's our responsibility to clean up. Do you know what I mean? So nothing is our fault because, again, our life is a result of how we were treated and how we were coded and so on and so forth. And if we don't realize eventually that we're the only ones who are going to clean it up, nothing happens. And so I'm really getting that sense with this, that this isn't like, the advice from Spirit is not like this fantasy thinking sort of forgiveness, like, oh, light and love and just forgive everybody. And because I have found in my life that really doesn't work. That either that's manipulative in some way, whether it's unconscious or not. And also it's just like usually unsuccessful in terms of really healing things, in terms of really moving your health or your life in any area of your life towards health. Okay. What really has to happen is a reckoning, right? And part of that, and a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission for that reckoning until we are a little easier on ourselves, right? Because otherwise we're always just trying to like defend our position, right? We double down maybe on what we did do because, people don't understand, or, so on and so forth. And so there's this like willingness to be on one's own team that is necessary to move towards the healing process. And as I say that, I'm thinking of another video that I have on that channel that I mentioned. It's called Exercise 180. And it's a journaling exercise to help you move towards any discomfort or difficulty in your life, not from the intention or energy of shame, but with the intention of curiosity, so that you can kind of unlock what the situation might be trying to tell you, not in terms of why am I being punished for this, but in terms of like, what is the message here? Why is this happening? So that you can more and more unlock true problems and true solutions. But the first part of that journaling exercise is really helping get you into the place where you're going to be on your own team, instead of just trying to shame yourself into being better, quote unquote. I say that quote unquote because like I don't think that's ever possible. I don't think we can come from a place of shame and actually get better. Things might change in the outward world, but if we're starting from that seed of shame, it just doesn't work. So there's this really complex message. I just loving it. It's like there's this call to seeing healing and getting better in this more paradoxical, complex way, where it's not just about like, am I forcing myself to change? And am I forcing myself to forgive somebody else who did something bad? But it's like, again, starting with, okay, I'm innocent and I'm responsible. Do you know what I mean? I can work on being on my own team and trying to derive change from that partnership instead of from shame. And I have some things to clean up here, right? And I can realize that the first step in forgiving somebody else is actually forgiving myself and then working through a real therapeutic process so that the forgiveness is the caboose, it is not the engine. And that's really something I want to speak up very, very plainly in this, because I think it's coming through. Like the message of this card is beautiful, and if it's taken in the wrong way, it can keep us stuck, right? And so I think forgiveness in the proper light is, again, it is the caboose, it is not the engine. There are real things we have to work through on the quote unquote train of forgiveness. And I think in this particular image that I spoke about from this therapist, Patrick, the engine was like the will to heal. And then the middle of the train is like grief and pain. And then near the caboose is, I think it was like empowerment and justice. Do you know what I mean? And then forgiveness becomes more natural. And so there is this. So again, I do think, and he also talks about how forgiveness doesn't need to happen for true healing to happen. It might naturally occur, but it doesn't need to happen. So I really think this merciful energy is really intended to be directed towards yourself, to help you move out of whatever difficult hole that you might be in. Because I think sometimes when we're in a hole, whether that's like your health, your physical health, you feel like there's something really wrong and you don't know how to fix it, a relationship, it could be your career or finances, any area of your life. I think if we're honest with ourselves, we've all had that experience of like, I'm in a hole, right? And the temptation is just to like lie down on the ground inside the hole and just like sleep, right? Like not try to dig yourself out, because it's hard to dig yourself out of holes or to climb yourself out, whatever metaphor you want to use. And I'm also getting the metaphor of like, what's that called? Frostbite, like I think the metaphor is like, it's when you are actually, so let's say your hand has been frostbite or whatever, like it's actually more painful to warm it up to prevent it from getting so bad that you might have to amputate it, right? It's actually less pain to just keep it cold and getting colder and colder and colder. But once we start warming it up, it's like we have to reckon and deal. But what's actually healthier is like the warming it up, right? And so there's something here about that where I really feel like the message from Spirit, the advice from Spirit is realizing that you may or may not forgive somebody else or other people in your life. I feel like that's inconsequential in this reading. What this wants to say is it's really about forgiving yourself, helping you realize that the nature of the universe is merciful. The nature of the universe is in support of resurrection, right? And we have to like move in that direction. We have to be willing to be guided towards resurrection. And part of that is reckoning, right? And part of that is like your frostbite starts to warm up and it hurts more than when it was like in a state. And part of that is like trying to climb out of the hole, which is like messy and hard, and you kind of fall down instead of just like laying down in the hole. Do you get what I'm saying? So there's definitely something here about you liberating yourself. And that starts with a forgiveness of yourself and a reminder of yourself that the nature of the universe is resurrection. We could call it the universe. I like to call it oftentimes like Mother God, whatever you call it, life, God, spirit, universe, whatever makes sense to you. It's like when we can remind ourselves that essence knows how to resurrect. Resurrection is easy for that essence. You know what I mean? I'm thinking of A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles says like there's no order of difficulty in miracles. So there's something here about that. And even if like what you're dealing with doesn't feel that intense, there's still something here about like this is how you unstick any sort of stuck energy, is realizing that there is a plan for your resurrection, whatever that means. I mean, that sounds kind of like sort of like exaggerating or dramatic, but it's really what wants to come through. Like whether what you're dealing with feels like the end of the world or it feels like it's a more subtle challenge, but maybe like chronic. The first step is realizing that liberation is possible, that resurrection is possible, and that there is an essence that knows how to do that, and has a plan for that. And so you don't have to figure it all out. There's just like this willingness to get in the vein of that essence, right? And to be more and more like willing to be led by that essence. And I think that willingness can be like jump started by this idea of mercy for yourself and mercy as the nature of this life that we live. So it's really, really beautiful. And now I want to shift our attention a bit more to the soul tree cards. We've got the fourth chakra heart center, and I will read their short descriptions in a moment, but I just want to speak out what's coming to me in terms of just their general essence. And then we've got balance. And so I do think, I mean, it's sort of wild because it's just piggybacking off of what was coming through with this card. And the start is like this fourth chakra essence. So that's literally your heart chakra, which is the chakra of compassion, right? This like idea that maybe we can be led in our life. Maybe our heart knows better than our head what we need and what is best for us and therefore best for others. Do you know what I mean? So there's something coming here about the wisdom of your heart. And it's like twofold. It's like this forgiveness energy where you're more and more dissipating that deep shame that you might throw at yourself. And then it's also like there's wisdom of the heart. Our heart also tells us what we want, right? So it can heal the past and it can also inform the future. And so there's like this call to seeing your heart as wise. I think more than your head. I was gonna say equally as your head, but I think truly the logic and strategy that can come from more of our just logic thinking brain power, so to speak, is best used when it's in service to the heart. You know what I mean? But when it's in charge and it's trying to get like the rest of our life to be in service of it, it usually is just forcing things that just repeat, then we just have like vicious cycle after vicious cycle. But we can let something wiser lead the way, but then put strategy behind that, have our strategy be in service of the heart. That's a completely different situation. And so there's something here about really paying attention to when your head is in charge and when your heart's in charge, and baby step by baby step, molding this trust in your heart center by reminding yourself there is wisdom there. There's wisdom there. And all of this, I mean, it's just so beautiful. All of this is leading, I think, towards a rebalancing that you're really, really desiring. We could say like a resurrection, right? Because what is a resurrection? All a resurrection is really, it's a rebalancing. And so I think that's just like a simple way to put it, but I'm really loving it right now. And as I'm saying that, like the journaling exercise that I mentioned before, I think I labeled it like healing toxic shame or something like that. So you can look for it in the description box, but it goes through helping you utilize this framework that I developed called the language of life. It's a 4-column framework that's intended to help you, again, move towards your difficulties and discomforts, get information from them instead of shutting down in shame. But what I talk about there is it's really all about rebalancing, because really when there's a problem, there's just simply an imbalance. But if we're not skilled at like really diving into the language of life, not necessarily this framework, but whatever you like, skilled at like getting information from life, okay, and whatever way you do that, this framework, the language of life, is just one way that so something I've developed to help me get information from life. But what happens is then we just keep getting, if we're not skilled at that, we just keep getting out of balance, out of balance, out of balance. We keep experiencing the same imbalance over and over again, or it gets worse and worse and worse because we're not getting the message it's intending for us to get. And so there's something here I just like about, like, we talked about some pretty ethereal things, right? Like the nature of the universe. And there's also, it's just like also very practical and logical. Like, how do you solve imbalances? We can call it resurrection, or we can just call it like you're solving an imbalance. And so there's like this, again, this sort of paradoxical energy that's showing up here of like real hardcore spiritual principles with like real hardcore realities of living a physical life well, which I'm just loving. And it's like marrying in this reading in a really beautiful, beautiful sense. So I think there is like advice from spirit is like, you can do this, whatever it is you are wanting to do, whether it's a desire or aspiration you're moving towards, or it's a hole you're climbing out of. You have the power to do this. I do think everyone innately has that power. But I also think specifically to you, you're at a place in your life where you've essentially done enough inner work, done enough spiritual work where like you can tackle this. And it's like a weird thing to say when we've got like the heart chakra out, and the mercy like tackle doesn't seem like it like fits with that, but really that's what's coming through. Like there's this like there, and it's almost like relates to that train metaphor where the engine of the train is the will to heal. So there's like this, there is an intensity to this journey sometimes where we do have to like decide to tackle something, reckon, will to heal, right? But then ultimately it's held by this gentleness. And I think the final thing that wants to come through, and I thought of it when I was reading this card to you, which is where they were talking about how like people tried to kill her, but like the swords just didn't work. And I do think, I truly believe it's been my experience. It's been what I've witnessed. And it's something I'm building my trust in more and more. But I really am coming to a belief that when we are really truly trying to heal, when we are really truly trying to grow and get better, we are protected in that. So the universe protects that energy. It recognizes that sincerity, and in your own unique way, you essentially have like a protection bubble around you, right? That doesn't mean you don't have to deal with hard things. We do have to confront and reckon, right? But ultimately, we are protected when we decide, when we make the true, sincere decision. Or I don't know if it happens that way. It's just one, but hopefully you know what I mean. Like when we are coming from a place, moment in, moment out, when we're coming from a place where we sincerely are trying to get better, when we are sincerely trying to grow, when we are sincerely working on rebalancing, there is a protection energy that comes in. And I definitely think that story with this Princess of Mercy, where she was protected, wants to be said, that you can rely on that protection. And there's a mantra that comes from this deck. It's not obviously this particular archetype it comes from. I can't remember which one it is, but it's, I am safe and divinely protected. And that has always been a helpful one, or not always, but over the past few years has been a helpful mantra for me when I know I'm doing the right thing, but things are still like difficult or scary or unknown. When I can just be like, okay, but sincerely in my heart, I know I am trying to heal this and do better. And so I'm safe and divinely protected in that. So I think that mantra could be really, really helpful for you. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for the healing work that you're doing. I think like one human to another, this is the work we're being all called to do right now. And it's not easy work. And it is so rewarding. And it is so important. So thank you for being willing to do it. Keep going, and know that you're protected as you move forward with not only this healing, but I also think this aspiration. I mean, I'm just really being drawn to the butterflies here as we finish up. Like it is healing, and it is this like unlocking of who you truly are and what you truly want.